Oh no, I've been paralyzed from the waist down. My classified military documents are all the way across the room. How am I ever going to get them? A while ago, I got insanely bored. My last project was months ago. It was always really hard for me to come up with projects, but I always wanted to do them. So I sat in my room ready to wreck my brain until an idea came through.
I want to make an excavator.
As soon as I sat down, I got hit with divine inspiration. I was gonna make an excavator. My first plan was to use parts from my Arduino smart card that I got in middle school. I printed some brackets to go on the motor and hold the other motor, but I ran into an issue that was very prominent throughout the whole project. Weight. Since there was a lot of weight on the end of the arm, the motor couldn't move. The temporary solution was to make the parts hollow and weigh next to nothing. However, that wasn't very useful for the rest of the project. The second problem was coding the Arduino smart card. Have you ever heard the classic saying that they say in engineering school, come on guys, it's just rocket science, it's not like you're coding the Arduino smart card. Overall, this was just too much of a hassle, and I actually broke the infrared sensor on it. So I couldn't even control it remotely, which was not the plan. I needed to control it remotely. So I decided to scrap that and come up with a new plan. I got a different Elegoo kit online that instead of having like a smart card, had a bunch of Arduino parts that I could use, and that ended up working amazingly. So I've changed up what I'm doing a little bit. The original plan was this mess. It was to attach a motor driver to the treads and the treads to work, but they didn't. So um, I just kind of have a bunch of junk in my hands. Anyways, then it didn't work. But with the Arduino set that I also got a stepper motor and so much stuff. A servo motor. And you may be thinking, a stepper motor and a servo motor are not strong enough to lift a bucket. That's true. Except the stepper motor is. The servo motor is not. So I made these gears. This one perfectly fits onto here and meshes with this one. So I've finished with the design. And this is how the arm's going to look. This part right down here is going to be attached to the stepper motor. This is the servo motor. We have the two gears, and hopefully, once it's all connected and wired together properly, it will work, but I don't know yet. So it's now time to do the coding, and the only thing that stopped the last rendition was the coding, because I'm actually not that good at it. But it's basically just servo motor code and stepper motor code. Coding. I've never coded Arduino. I think that should be said. I think that's pretty obvious, but I've never coded Arduino. I'm really bad at it, and I did it in school like once or twice, but I never coded it. I just took code online that my teacher gave us. However, I kind of needed to code this time. So what did I do? Well, I used the example codes that Elegoo gives me and ChatGPT. I know, I don't think AI is a perfect tool, and for art, I don't think it should be used for anything. AI art is not art. However, I think for coding, it's pretty good, and it's gotten better. Obviously, I didn't use AI for the whole thing. I didn't just say, hey, write a code that can move all this stuff using this stuff and this stuff. I would basically make my own code. If it didn't work, I would go, hey, hey, ChatGPT, my code isn't working. Can you help fix it? ChatGPT would fix it up, and it would end up working. That's when the first issue came back up. Wait, I couldn't carry that much weight. The stepper motor, however strong it was, wasn't strong enough to carry a servo motor for some reason at the end of a pull. So I decided to use gear ratios. If you use a smaller gear with the motor on it and connect it to a bigger gear, it can lift more weight. However, it is a lot slower. You've probably seen the opposite of this, using a really big motor to move a really small motor, which creates a lot of speed, but it can't lift that much weight. This is my claw that I'm making for a future project. I'll post a video on that soon. But I just finished all the 3D printing and all the wiring, so this is how it works. So it's all controlled with this remote when it works. Next problem was the treads. I originally was going to use these big treads that I got for another project a while ago, but I ended up not using. However, these treads had motors so big that I couldn't use any motor controller for them. I ended up having to go I ended up having to use the old motors from the Elegoo Smart Car, but even those wouldn't work. So I went online and I found this cheap Adafruit, not Adafruit, this cheap thing online that worked, I think. I decided to use Jesh's track treads that I found on printables. However, they didn't quite work for what I need them for, so I did the next best thing of editing them. The edited versions will be up on my printables as a remix of what he did. If you think that that's cheating and that I should make all the models myself, I don't want to. I'm lazy. And second of all, I think it is very important to highlight people in the community that are making projects like this. Jesh made a very cool Arduino robot that I think should also be shown. I printed everything for the final time and everything was wired up. Now it was just time to install the treads. However, I ran into a roadblock. The treads wouldn't move it, and I was very sad because I had spent a lot of money on this project. I didn't want to have to get new treads or new things, so I tried a lot of different stuff. I had the idea of installing a wheel underneath to take some of the weight off of the treads and make them more about moving instead of having to pull the whole thing or lift the whole thing up. So I was going to try that, but then I was like, hey, maybe I should change the batteries. The batteries have been on for like hours, maybe even days. I think I left them on overnight once. So let me just change those out. I changed it out, and it worked first try. And you might want to know, can you make this project as well? Yes, you can. However, I don't think I'd recommend it. This project was more of a, I do this, I make something really cool. The price is completely outrageous. For all of my electronics, it was about $100. So I don't think I would ever recommend someone make this normally. However, there are a bunch of alternatives. Professor Boots made a fully working excavator that's a lot more accurate than mine is, and probably the same price, if not a little cheaper. So I think if you want to make a cool RC excavator, do not make mine. It was more of a project. If you want an idea, then you can use any of my parts or any of the parts that I got. If you have some of the parts laying around and you just want to make something quick out of them, yes, absolutely, make my excavator. Also, if you guys have fun project ideas, I would love to hear them. I'm always in search of new projects. I have some fun ones planned for the upcoming year. However, if you have some, I'd love to hear them. Now, I've asked a lot of people what they've thought about the Benchy, and they said that it's very cool. I agree. However, I want to know what you guys think. Most of my projects aren't ever done. I just redo them in the future. If a project ends up being so cool that I don't need to redo it, I'll probably just add on to it. But this project can definitely be redone. So, if you guys have ideas about what I can change about my RC excavator, leave them in the comments. I'll respond to them. I'll add them to the next variation. My classified military documents that should not be leaked on War Thunder Discord.